Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, come to you as always from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley, and joining me as always are my co-host,
Garrett K. Jones,
and Brian Karasik. I'm giving lie to the statement that we're far beyond the eyes of the Galactic Empire because I'm watching you.
He is our resident Imperial. Also joining us today is from Clashing Sabers, Amanda Curtis. Amanda, welcome to War of the Stars.
Hi, thanks. Froze there for a second, so I might have missed a thing or two, but
no,
I'm glad to be here.
Well,
we have a running joke that Mark might be on Hoth.
Not today. It was too hot to be Hoth today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
It's been rating for 26 hours here. I love it.
Send it our way, please. California is in a drought. We need the water.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we have all four time zones represented. We just need Alaska and Hawaii, and we'd have all of the U.S. time zones. Because I know Brian is in the East Coast. I'm in Central. Amanda, you're in Mountain?
No, Central.
You're in Central? Okay, I thought you were. I thought you were. Okay. So we have three. Okay.
We have the three major ones.
Yeah, the ones that matter.
Yeah, we can ignore Utah.
Oh, that's where I was born.
What part?
Left when I was 6 months, though.
So. What part?
Oh, Salt Lake area.
Okay. My ex-wife was from north of Brigham City.
Okay. Yep.
I did that as an infant as well, except I was born in Hawaii. Left in 9 months. Ooh. My dad took a job with the Iranian state government. Thanks, Dad. Instead of growing up in Honolulu, Tehran.
Oh. Ooh.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse. I could have gotten there.
79.
That's when we left. I was there from 74 to 79. Don't forget how old I am. Don't let the baby face fool you. Let's talk the women of Star Wars.
Anyway, yes, we are talking the women of Star Wars, and where else should we start off than the original? Leia, Princess Leia.
One of two in the film.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh yeah, Aunt Beru.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
There's
two, yeah.
Mon Mothma.
Yeah. Well,
not in the original film.
Isn't she?
Not the first. Not in the New Hope.
No. I always make the joke that it's about time that there's a podcast with three white guys talking about Star Wars because there's just such a dearth of that.
I pretty much everyone I've been on.
Yeah, absolutely,
including my own.
So I'm curious, if I may, when did you come to the trilogy? Like, what got you involved? Tell me a little bit of tell me your backstory. What's your origin story?
So, I have a bit of a different story than the norm. I was born in 81, so old enough to have grown up with it, but my parents weren't into it. So I was almost forced to watch it in college when my roommates found out I hadn't seen any of them. And didn't leave a mark, actually, at that time, strangely. Come The Mandalorian, and then COVID. After that, I dove in with typical ADHD hyperfocus fashion and did a chronological watch, including the animated series, and fell absolutely in love. And I love research, and so I just ate up everything I could find out about Star Wars and then some, and I'm a big reader, so I started reading all the books. I really came into it at the time the High Republic came out, so that was a great starting point for me. I was really appreciative of that. And I've read outside of that a little bit, mostly canon, just for now. It's not that I'm stuck on the canon, really. I think a good story is a good story, but haven't had time, I guess. So there's
certain ones that strike my fancy.
Oh, I read that one for my podcast, actually.
Oh. It's not my favorite.
It was interesting. I liked it more than I thought I would. I love Dathomir. I love the Night Sisters and all of that. So
you must have read Dark Disciple then. That's my favorite new canon.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yep.
Boy. I tried to get Christy Golden to come on a show I used to work on.
Wow.
I was pitching everything I could to her because I'm Facebook friends with James Luceno, and nothing says close friends like an unread Facebook message since 2016. So like we're real close. But whoever runs his page approved my friend request, so I'm calling it. It's not like when I followed a fake Ian McDermott Twitter page for 2 years. But at any rate, I reached out to her. I talked to her, but unfortunately, by the time I got in touch with her, she was over on the Blizzard side of the house writing World of Warcraft novels. And Blizzard, if you know this, they install a bomb in your head, and you're not allowed to speak to anyone in the public unless you are willing to have it detonated. So she's like, "Oh, I'd love to, but like they really have a tight leash on who I talk to and for what." So like she didn't outright say, but clearly implied she was unable to discuss Star Wars in a public venue.
Oh, that's too bad.
That is too bad because Dark Disciple made me cry twice.
Oh, it's such a good book.
And now, while I am a gentle soul, I'm also a Navy veteran and a white dude. Like, I can't be crying into a hardback book on Delta 727. Come on now.
The best ones make you cry.
I got to touch on this, though. This is my favorite thing to ask about Dark Disciple, since you're clearly a student of the literature. Do you think that Christy Golden and Katie Lucas had read about the mantis shrimp a little too close to writing that novel?
You know what? It's been so long. That's one of the very first ones I read.
Okay.
It
came out quite early.
To go back.
Go back and look at the Dweller of the Deep, the creature that the Night Sisters have to fight underwater using the Force to convince it.
Yes.
It's a mantis shrimp. Like, it's clearly described, like with the punching thing. Like, it's really ostentatious. I had just read the Oatmeal comic strip about it. I was like, wait a minute, this is a mantis shrimp. But it's okay. It's a formidable foe. If it's more than 6 inches long, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I just watched an octopus documentary that had mantis shrimp in it, so I know what you're talking about.
Is it my octopus teacher or whatever it is?
No, it's the one on Disney with Paul Rudd narrating.
Oh, sure. Okay. Check out what is it now? Well, we'll come back to that. Anyway, so I got my question. Garrett, John Mark, you go.
Wow.
I've got nothing at the moment. I'm just enjoying this.
After mantis shrimp, I mean, where do we go from there?
I'll say one thing I like to say is that my parents didn't raise me right, but I got there eventually despite them. So
yeah,
I think that's cool. You're essentially old school and a newcomer. Like have never heard a fan into it as you are, like a podcaster. As I say, a student of the lore. I've never heard someone say like that they came to it with the High Republic novels and the Mandalorian. That's it's refreshing. Usually it's as I say, a bunch of white guys arguing about how old they were when they were in line for the first one. Which
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I like it. Gives me a little bit of a hook.
When I went my dad was an old school nerd, and he took me to the first show, and we were in Tehran, as I mentioned, so it wasn't until 78. But it's one of my earliest memories. I had my Luke and Leia figures with me, and they were on a date because we didn't know. And I remember clearly asking my parents, please don't tell them where we're going, because I wanted it to be a nice surprise for the figures.
A surprise date.
And seeing my daughter do the same thing. Like, I have a BB-8 droid, and when she was younger, she drew a picture of BB-8 and showed it to it. Like, here you go, BB-8. I wish she called him Hatball. Here you go, Hatball. I drew a picture of you. So that's fun to see.
Yeah.
But
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I will say it's been really rewarding as a girl dad. As I say, she's 6 and she's our only one. And when you have a child as a Star Wars fan, your first thought is naturally, when do I get to show them the movies? And, growing up, there were not a lot of friends I had who were girls who liked the movies. And more than once, even in the 70s, 80s, what I heard was like, there's no chicks in that movie. Like, there's nothing for them. I always joke that when we named our daughter, I was told no Star Wars names. I was like, oh, come on, but Ula, it's such a nice name. Like,
that would be a choice.
Amanda, I was so close. I was close. I said, well, how about, totally separate from that conversation, I was like, how about Mara?
I thought about Mara.
And my wife, for just a second, she's like, "Oh, wait a minute." She just Googled Mara Star Wars. God damn, I almost had her. But I actually had a chance to meet Ashley Eckstein at Star Wars Celebration 19 in Chicago. And it wasn't a paid event. It was just, we were both picking up our badges at the same time. And I'm just sort of looking around in wonderment the day before the show. And I hear up ahead, I'm here to pick up my badge. Like, that sounds like Ahsoka Tano. Oh, that is Ahsoka Tano. And it was just so great. And I had a chance to tell her, she wasn't surrounded by handsome, shirtless men like she should be. No one was carrying her around on a palanquin like she should be. She was just alone. So I greeted her as Miss Eckstein. She's like, you can call me Ashley. No, but thank you. Anyway, I just told her it's just been such a pleasure seeing her character develop and her clothing line and everything. It's just like, I'm so glad. At the time my daughter was 2. And I said, I can't wait to introduce Star Wars to her, and your show, your character are the way I'm going to do it. So it's, can you talk a little bit about your witnessing, like you came in, that had already taken place, but reading back to the old novels, did you get a chance to experience any of that sort of opening up to the acknowledgement that women exist and read science fiction?
I am the recipient of the people before me. It is so open now to women in a way that I don't think this geek culture in general ever has been before. I hear stories of my coworkers and friends that I'm close to, and they talk about, they're Star Wars fans as well, and they talk about their experiences growing up. I even had the privilege of interviewing a woman from Finland. It's my first podcast episode ever. That was Trial by Fire, is an interview with a Finnish woman. They're very reserved, but she was bullied and probably the only female Star Wars fan in all of Finland. Just the things that she went through. But she said that Star Wars actually gave her strength. Like, she would pretend that she was a Jedi to get through some of that bullying. And I thought that was just so empowering, and what a great story of just taking something that may not historically be known as having the most female representation, but still finding herself in it despite that. I really loved her story. Shmi's also her favorite Star Wars character of all of them. So that was wonderful. We had a great
conversation about Shmi recently.
Really?
We did, yeah. Wow, that's really.
I wouldn't have thought Finland to be a source of much bullying. What they do, take away her lutefisk? Like, how do they Finnish bully?
Sure. Again, very reserved.
So reserved. They're just like, no, we will only greet you partially cordially.
She was wonderful. We're Facebook friends. Like, right, I hail from that area, so I hope to go visit her one day, maybe, and visit some relatives and things, maybe.
Cool. That's great. I knew friends who did online gaming, like when it was first becoming a real big thing, like 2010, 2011 time frame for, or I guess more like 2004, 2005 World of Warcraft. And I know a couple women who got mods to modulate their voice so that when they spoke on Team Chat, it did not sound like they were like, I just don't need the come-ons, like, oh, where are you located? Like, how old are you? Like, and I also know a guy whose son is 13 and sounds like a girl and got some really inappropriate commentary, and it's embarrassing. Like sometimes not less often now than previously, but there have been times in the past when I was just like, I'm mad that I share a fandom with you. Like, I don't have anything in common with the kind of people that we encounter. So, do you do any cosplay? Do you go to conventions, or are you predominantly?
I do go to conventions. I've also met Ashley, James Arnold Taylor, Matt Lanter, Taylor Gray. Anyway, just super fun. And I love bounding. So it's like cosplay, but a step down. I haven't quite gone full into the cosplay. I have an Ahsoka outfit that is pretty darn close. And I have been to Galaxy's Edge twice, and I went once before even knowing about bounding and once after. And it makes a real big difference in your experience there. Like, it means so much more.
What's bounding? This is
I'm sorry. It's also called casual cosplay. And you often hear it with Disney bounding, because at Disney, you can't dress up in costume because you might be mistaken for a cast member. So people take inspiration from characters with more everyday clothing.
Gotcha.
And dress up that way. I have a Kanan bound. That was my first one. I wore it when I met the Rebels cast, or most of the Rebels cast, at a convention this summer, and it was so casual or so subtle that nobody noticed, but it's for me. So yeah,
that's cool.
So I have to tell you quickly, these two guys know this story of my story of almost meeting the Rebels cast. Me and my daughter went to our first convention a couple of years ago in Indianapolis. We went to Indiana Comic-Con, and the entire cast was going to be there. We were super excited, and we got up early. My daughter's, we're going through, I have another show, by the way, called Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child, where myself and my daughter are going through the Clone Wars in chronological order. And we're discussing it, talking about it. Right there, Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child on YouTube. Check it out. And we had our questions ready. You know, we weren't going to be able to get to do the picture and the autograph. We just didn't have the money for that. We were going to go, and I didn't take in consideration the fact that Indianapolis is on Eastern time. So we crossed the border into Indiana, and I saw the time go up, and I realized we're going to be an hour late. Passed away, and I was like, and I was so upset. And my daughter, she had a Darth Vader dress, like full on black with a little thing on. She had a little mask, and we still had a lot of fun. Got several pictures from stormtroopers wanting to take a picture with her, or her taking pictures with the stormtroopers. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if I take her again next year if I go, just because it was a lot, and I was constantly worrying about, like, okay, you know, I have to use the restroom. I don't want to leave her here. You know, there's hundreds of people going around, and it's just like big city, bigger city. And I was just really, I think because I was so frazzled and trying to keep an eye on her, I wasn't able to enjoy it as much. So I think I might wait a couple of years until she's like, because she turns 10 next week, actually. And, might wait a couple of years, but even from the very beginning, I would have her, and I have videos somewhere of her. I'd ask her when she was like 4 or 5, 4, what does Darth Vader say? And she'd go, I am your father. And I'd go, then I would tell her, what does Luke Skywalker say? And she'd go, that's not true. That's impossible.
That's great. My daughter very early called Darth Vader Googaw because.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That was his name was Guga, and I have a Black Series helmet that I put on her a few times. She doesn't much care for being inside it. Yeah. She's good with the lightsaber.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. We were talking about from the very beginning, there wasn't a lot of women, but yet the women that we did see, like, were very powerful.
Yes.
Leia was not the damsel in distress from the very beginning, even though she's being rescued. You see her being rescued. You can tell from the very, very beginning that this is someone who is a leader, that she knows. I mean, she stands up to Vader, like right away. Just not only stands up to him, but basically, says like, "Oh, I can see someone else." Basically, it's like, "Oh, I can see someone else is holding your leash."
Right.
It's just
from the dog.
Yeah.
That's what, it's not always about the number. It's about the quality more than the quantity.
Yeah.
And she brings the quality.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in my mind, that, she should be, if she's not already, she needs to be a Disney princess. I mean, just.
She has a small animal companion. All she needs to do, according to Disney's own canon, is to sing a song while looking in important water, and she'll be set. Amanda, what do you think of Jyn Erso? I think she gets short shrift compared with as you mentioned, the giants on whose shoulders she stands. I'm a big fan of Jyn Erso. I think that's first off, Rogue One's a great movie. That's now my gateway movie. If I'm going to introduce the saga to someone fresh, that's what I show them.
Rogue One is my favorite movie. Love that movie. Love Jyn.
What just happened?
She froze.
Maybe she's on Hoth. I'm just going to get.
Let's get her back live. We got John Mark of the 1s and 2s. Check. 1 2 1 2.
Hey. Well, while we're waiting,
how bad would it be if we like all did our best Frozen and Carbonite stance right when she comes back online? Like that would be so awful.
Oh wait, wow. That's too flattering. This is how it should be Frozen. Well, for those at home still playing the home game, I think Felicity Jones does a great job acting anyway. But I think the character of Jyn Erso is really interesting just because of the way that she isn't. You guys know I love an iconoclastic hero who she's like, she's the protagonist of the film, but like against her will, and the fact that they had to kidnap her to save her. It's a great moment. I would have liked to hear what happened.
Which still one of the best lines ever. You're being rescued. Please do not resist. K2 is still one of my favorite.
Hogan Washburn. God bless him.
One of the things I think is probably the thing I like best about Jyn Erso as a female protagonist is that she plays up all of the classic steps of the hero's journey, because you get that call to action and she wants nothing to do with it. She completely rejects the call, which is classic. I mean, you see this with Luke Skywalker in the original film, and instead for her, while she and Luke both have that point where they have no choice, there's no point of return for them. It's different. Like with Luke, his aunt and uncle are wiped out for him. But then with Jyn, it's the threat of, well, if you don't do this, we will kill your dad. Or if you don't do this, you will be thrown in prison. There's a lot of these negative consequences if she chooses to just do her own thing. And what's interesting is it's not the people in power that are having this lorded over her. It's the rebellion.
Yeah.
And she ends up she ends up deciding for herself at some point to be not really a true believer in it, but she becomes, she becomes at least an adherent to it to some degree.
Yeah.
Amanda, your turn.
One of the things I always found interesting with. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Is it's one of my favorite lines from Rogue One. Is the line, and I because it just to me it I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it just shows how people have viewed tyrants and dictatorships throughout history. Is when she says, about someone makes a comment about the imperial flag flying over all these planets, and she says, "If you don't have to see it if you don't look up," or something to that effect. Oh. And it was just such a great line, because I mean, how many times have people throughout history just kind of kept their head down and not wanted to rock the boat because, hey, they're not hurting me.
Fall out of that boat.
Yeah. They're not hurting me. They're not, I just kind of live my life. And, but yeah, I did. The character of Jyn is just a great character. And,
I was really happy to see
anyway,
Carrie Russell come in as Zoni Bliss in Rise of Skywalker, because now we are only one Felicity away from the Felicity trifecta. Between Carrie Russell, Felicity Jones, we just need Felicity Huffman. We all set.
Isn't she in prison?
I was going to say, I watched Felicity.
No, she paid a fine. Come on. She's a rich white lady prison. What country do you live in?
California?
I think Aunt Becky got worse than her, but even so, it was like 10 grand.
Yes.
But any rate, no, as I said a minute ago, I'm interested to hear, especially since it's your favorite movie. That's a nice surprise and good taste. Don't listen to me though. Empire is my least favorite movie, which is objectively wrong. but I can't help it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Every time he goes to Dagobah, just kills it for me. Wake me up when we got the best bit.
Yeah.
But no, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Jyn Erso as a protagonist, the story. Let's hear what you got.
I don't know. I can't say they're super well developed. I have read Catalyst, right? And then the Rogue One novelization. No. Anyway, I have a lot of added depth knowledge by reading the books about her, and they are among my favorite books there. And she's a scrappy one. Like, she's just doing what she needs to do to survive until she finds something bigger to believe in. And in some way, that's really easy to identify with. I mean, I'm not in danger, hopefully, of being thrown into prison or anything, or onto a junk planet as what do you call it when as somebody who's recovering the
knock on
the
wood
valuable stuff there.
But
at the same, yeah, right. But at the same time, I'm living my life sometimes minute to minute, day by day, just trying to get through, because we live such busy lives that, like you're referencing before, you just keep your head down and just do what you need to get by until you find something bigger than yourself to believe in. And that hopefully for all of us, it comes at some point to give that minute to minute some significance and to leave a mark on the world. And she left the ultimate mark on their galaxy. Just, I can't even imagine sacrificing my life. And that last scene just makes me cry every time.
I was so impressed with Rogue One. A lot of people, will be debating for decades the benefits or the pros and cons of Disney buying the franchise. But my greatest concern was that the films were going to become, one of my greatest concerns was that the films are going to become Disneyfied. And I thought there'd be some post-credit scene where we see that the Rogue team, that Rogue Squadron actually survived. And I didn't want that. Like, how are you going to survive a direct hit from the Death Star? And where have you been ever since? Like, if you survive, that means you've either lived out your life in ignominy with nobody knowing who you are. Much better have them die in a sacrifice. So I appreciate that, and I was a big fan of that.
I agree. I've said this before, that I think Rogue Squadron is probably not just one of the best Star Wars movies, but one of the best war movies of the past decade.
I mean, the last 45 minutes or 45 seconds of Darth Vader is all I need.
War film. We're having technical difficulties with Amanda again. Well, wait here.
We can edit that out. She'll be back.
We promise.
She said
we're having a punch it Chewie moment. I've always said one of my favorite things about Star Wars is you never know when stuff's going to work or not. So
Although I've said this before on the show. I'm still waiting for Rogue 2 mini Bothans.
Yeah. I forget who did it, but there's a comic strip of like Admiral Akbar saying, "No, you can't send Bothans to do anything." He's like, I sent 2 Bothans to get coffee for the crew, all dead. They just always die no matter what they do.
All dead.
And then were you referencing the joke of like Manuel Bothans, Manny Bothans died? just one guy named Manny.
Poor Manny.
My mom's handyman is named Manny. He didn't get the joke when I shared it with him.
There he is. Welcome back again.
I've done this many times before, so
have you tried reversing the polarity?
I wish I could. Magneto powers.
No, I was
or Captain Samantha Carter powers. I'm equal opportunity star franchise.
I was just telling them. I've told the joke before that I still want to see the movie Rogue 2 mini Bothans.
Mini Bothans, it's true.
I do like, while we're on the topic of Rogue One, I do think it's interesting that it's a great movie. I can't find a flaw in being a Star Wars fan. I have really looked, but the way that they wedded it so closely to Episode 4 kind of makes it a little awkward for Leia to be like with a straight face, like, "No, I'm on a diplomatic mission," and you want Vader to be like, "I just saw you." Like, the last movie ended 30 seconds ago. Give me a break. But there's always little hitches like that when you make movies out of chronological order, separated by decades. So I don't hold it against them, but it's if anything, that's just a little kind of a fun laugh. Vader's like, "Are you kidding me?" But my two, we've talked about this previously, but I wanted to bounce this off you as well, Amanda, because my two favorite female characters in Star Wars are Ahsoka and Asajj Ventress. They're two sides of the same coin. Now, all due respect to Princess Leia, I'm not saying I don't like her. I just think that I think we get to see a lot more of the character development of those two characters. Princess Leia is a hero from birth, essentially. Like, she's just always good and pure and brave and strong and a little bit sassy, and I like that. But my wife, a couple years ago, my wife got me a coffee mug that says "Property of the Death Star Cantina, do not remove." And I had to make a meme. I like my coffee like my women: strong, bitter, a little sweet, and removed from the Death Star without authorization. That's a running joke with me. But Ahsoka and Asajj Ventress. Now, having read Dark Disciple, do you have any thoughts? Anything you'd like to share on your thoughts on that book, that character? I'm not sure she's still with us, guys.
She says she's going to hotspot, so
we may have to try this over again.
Yeah,
Mustafar.
Okay, I'm hotspotting to my phone.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's not going to work either.
Well,
do you want to go off video? Would that help?
Okay. Yep. Sorry?
I was going to say, would going off video help conserve bandwidth?
I don't know.
It would be a loss, though. No, not if we don't need to.
I know.
I don't know if you heard the question.
Audio.
I don't know if you heard the
Ahsoka?
question, but yeah, Ahsoka and Asajj Ventress. I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin.
So I made a list today because I crammed for tests, and Ahsoka's at the top, and she will always be at the top. I have an Ahsoka bound. I have a limited lightsaber collection, and she's part of that. She's in my Jedi trifecta, and I've thought a lot about why I connect with the 3 Jedi that I've chosen, and for her, she's the person I want to be, but don't know that I am, in that she was willing to walk away and ask the questions and really stand up for herself. And I tend to be a people pleaser, and I'm not sure that I have that same strength, but I would like to. I think of course, it's tragic. That's part of the tragedy of not Darth Plagueis, but of Anakin. And, but it's her story, and she was true to herself in her story.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I'm fond of holding forth on.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I think that Ahsoka has more reason to turn to the dark side than any Force user we see in 1,000 years, counting Anakin. And the fact that she's just so completely discarded by the Jedi Council. And being an Imperial, I love to harp on this, but like, you guys are a bunch of telepaths. You can tell if she's telling the truth, but like not even a trial, just like, hey, you are accused of murder, and so we're kicking you out. And the only person that helps Ahsoka clear her name is Asajj Ventress, who any other day would be trying to kill her. So you gotta wonder, like, of course she said no. You know, like the group of old men who basically just crapped all over her for no good reason. Like, never mind your flawless record. Never mind the fact that we have psychometrists and telepaths on staff. We're just gonna say, it looks like you did it, so you're out. And you know, I harp on this, and John and Garrett have heard me say this before, and as have the audience. But Amanda, you're new, so welcome to the show.
Yeah.
When you get kicked out of the Jedi Council, you lose everything. They're only there. This is their only home since they're infants. All of their friends, the only place they have to live, their only source of income or support, gone. Nothing. The only thing you can do is why wouldn't every single Jedi who gets kicked out of the Order immediately become a crime lord? You're a demigod, and now you're no longer employed by the demigods who kept you in check. So, I mean,
this just made me think of something. Is why is there crime at all in the Star Wars galaxy? If the Jedi could just be like use the Force to be like, you're guilty, you're guilty. You're guilty.
He did it.
You're
she
thinking
didn't.
about
he
doing
did it.
something.
Right. Pre-crime department. Well, there's only 10,000 of them, guys.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, that's a question we touched on with Anakin too. Like, why did the Jedi save Anakin from slavery, but the rest of the slaves are fine? It's got to be frustrating to the Jedi and to the slaves that watch them go away. Like, okay, great. I guess we'll be here when you get back.
Well, you mentioned
another thing about Ahsoka. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can talk about Ahsoka all day.
Favorite topic.
We don't care.
Another thing about her too is just kind of what you were just saying. Her innate goodness. She left, but she never really left. She couldn't.
Yeah.
If you read the book, that's the first book I read. She really couldn't stop helping people, and that makes me think of a concept from My Republic called way seekers. I don't know if anybody's read any of the books here, but it's something that Qui-Gon probably would have done as well. It's you don't leave the order, but you go off on your own path with the Force, and that's really what she did. And so she was a way seeker, and I just love that she continued to do good as well, even when she may not have wanted to. So, in fact, she didn't. She just wanted to lay low and I don't know, just live a different life.
It was like those, those teachings were so ingrained in her. The good side of the teachings of helping, doing good, being there, and it was so ingrained in her that, she couldn't help. Even when she didn't want to be a Jedi, there's that great scene in Rebels. That fight scene between her and Darth Vader, that is so where you see the her in it was, I don't know, it's just such a great scene, that line of "I'm no Jedi," but yet we see that
it's even very Eowyn, isn't it?
Yeah, well, even in saying "I'm no Jedi," she becomes more Jedi than almost any other Jedi that there had, which is so ironic. She's here sitting here saying, "I am no Jedi." You kind of are.
That fight has some of the best dialogue too, even to Ezra Bridger when Ezra looks up from the floor and says, "I'm not afraid of you," and Vader says, "Then you will die braver than most." Oh,
yes.
Animation's where it's at.
Yeah. So. One you mentioned earlier, Brian, about Jen. And sometimes Jen kind of gets, with all these other great female characters, sometimes get kind of lost. One I wanted to kind of touch on that I think does get lost, and especially in the modern Star Wars, is Kira from the Solo movie. And just so different from all the others is from the very beginning, everyone else kind of has their hero arc. She in a ways has a villain arc. She goes from going one way, to just being.
How did you get out? I didn't. That's great.
Yeah.
Also, the first on-screen appearance of Teras Kazi. Thanks very much.
You've been kind of quiet.
Have you read the comics?
Oh, I've spent more time reading the comics than I have reading the books. In fact, back here, that top shelf right over here is the majority of it is Dark Horse, and I've got the entire run of the Clone Wars. I've got the Star Wars Vector. I've got the Legacy series where it jumps ahead 150 to 200 years, and you're dealing with Cade Skywalker. But one of my favorite stories, and these guys know it, is Shadows of the Empire. And so that kind of brought me up to asking if you've read it and if there was any standout female characters in that book for you.
I have not. It is on a long list. So
it's a good one. Because my thought on this is we kind of briefly touched on this, but top 5 female characters in all of Star Wars. I was sitting here. That's why I've been so quiet as I've been cultivating my list. Obviously, Leia and Mara Jade and Ahsoka are on there. I also have Dr. Aphra because she's just fun. And because she's like the punk rock of the Star Wars galaxy. But there's a character from Shadows of the Empire. Her name is Guri. She is the female assistant to Prince Shizor, who's this Phaline crime boss who's vying for Vader's spot as the Emperor's right hand, and like going so far as to attempt assassinations on Luke, even though the Emperor and Vader want Luke dead, or not dead, but want him alive, and it, because the story takes place in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. And what's interesting about Guri is that she's not a human. She looks like a human. She smells like a human. She acts like a human. She's actually an android, a very well-constructed, very hard to pinpoint android. And they don't learn about it until almost the very end, when she's got way more strength and agility and like zero loss of energy whenever she fights. And she's a really interesting character.
That's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Wow. Ah, she said force.
Gosh, for a non-force user.
Yeah.
Oh, punny and didn't even know it.
It happens.
So you mentioned you liked Dathomir. Where was your first introduction to Dathomir? Was it via Asajj Ventress or the older school Night Sister stories?
Clone Wars.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. The zombie army and all that, Mother Talzin and all that.
Oh, they're great. And I played a lot of Galaxy of Heroes. My main squad was all Night Sisters, and I like the seldom seen concept that the Force is more than just Jedi or Sith. Like, I like to see a Set Hearth or an Asajj Ventress. Like, let's talk about some other, not the gray Jedi issue. We discussed that on another podcast, and I almost had to get gagged on that one. Not a fan. But I'm not either. The idea, most I would say, I say with love, not hostility, but most casual Star Wars fans would assume that the Force is basically like, are you Jedi or Sith? And the question is much grander than that. And seeing how deeply, especially Dark Disciple, how deeply they delve into that culture is really fascinating to me. And the fact that it's a matriarchal society. In fact, like matriarchal with the men like segregated completely on the other side of the planet, or pretty far off at any rate.
Something like that.
I mean, but look at those horns. Who wants to cuddle with that? I think the Dathomir Knight brothers really got a bad deal. Although I don't think they have the horns when they're born, because if so, I think I'm going to come back around. The women got it worse. That's got to be no fun.
Oh,
I think they develop as they get older. Kind of like
thank goodness. Yeah, deer do it right. Surely the Dathomir had figured it out. But no, I always thought that was an interesting approach.
We've talked about the movies, but and the cartoons, but I mean, let's talk a little bit about what we've seen as far as women in the TV shows. Whether that be you said you came into it with Mandalorian. I mean, we right away we have characters like Cara Dune. Is it Doom or Dune? I can never remember.
Dune.
Cara Dune.
Like the movie.
Yeah. What was kind of your how you felt about that character?
I loved her. I felt like the actress was limited, but that the role was perfect for her limitation.
I agree. And we can go into, different thing, what we felt, about the character. And I thought she did a passable job. I don't get this idea from some people on just because of maybe her political stance that they suddenly think she's the greatest actress of all time. Like, let's just calm down. She was decent in her role. She did a good job in her role, but it wasn't a role that somebody else of that same couldn't have done too.
Let's take a moment. What role is she playing? A hard-bitten, tough woman who doesn't say much and gets the job done. That is literally who she is as a human being. This is like when Brad Pitt plays a handsome and good-natured white dude. It's convincing, yes, but she's not Charlize Theron playing a serial killer. She's playing who she is as a person. She did the same exact character in Deadpool, and not for nothing, politics aside, I would have gotten fired from my job as a defense contractor for what she put on Twitter if I put it on myself. Like, you are the face of a children's television show. You've got to be aware of that. She must have signed pages and pages of documentation saying that if you do exactly what you did, exactly what happened will happen. And it's frustrating me that she even comes up. I would say that her Black Series character comes
I do have to say, though, I did...
consequences. Sorry.
Wow. I do like her the scene when they're on the planet and they're going and they realize that they're going up against, that these crime lords or whoever, these raiders have an ATST, and her description of the ATST makes it even more terrible. I mean, first of all, just seeing that thing and when you see it come in with the glowing, look like glowing eyes. I've never been terrified of a chicken walker. I was terrified of an ATST. That thing looked terrifying. But her description of it, of her saying, like, I've seen these things take out entire squads of soldiers by itself, makes it even more terrifying. You're looking at it because you're looking at these things from Return of the Jedi, and they're falling over and they're like, oh, they look like chickens. But then you look at them and you're just like, oh my gosh, this thing is terrifying. You can see how this thing could just terrify a village like that. And part of it was her description of it, of just saying, like, no, you don't understand. You need to leave. You cannot defeat this thing. Go.
So when I was making my list, I was trying to think of out of the box people to maybe try to bring something different to the table. And I actually picked Omera from that episode, kind of the sort of love interest.
Oh, yeah.
She had a lot of depth for somebody who was only in it for, I don't know, 30 minutes or whatever it was. Yeah. And even there was a scene where they showed her skilled with whatever weapon she was using when nobody else was. So there's a story to her that I would love to know more about. So I thought she's a very interesting, almost mysterious kind of character.
Yeah.
I did have to look up her name. I couldn't remember it.
Yeah. It's really a shame that we didn't get more of her, because they really teased that she was going to be a someone who could come back, and it was really a shame that we didn't get more of that.
The spin-off, I wanted to see her career as a rebel.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is after the rebellion, so but you do get the hint that she had done something, because she picks up a blaster and
yes,
it seems like she knew what she was doing, like she could handle a weapon. So you always have that thing of like, wait a minute, what did they hinted like there was something more to her, but they never really paid that off. So
it still could. That could be his happy ending.
Yeah.
We'll see. There's the so creatively titled Mando and Grogu movie.
Maybe she'll show up in that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We can cross our fingers.
It's either that or he dies. I'm so pessimistic. Romantic and pessimistic. I don't know.
What did you, having gotten to know Ahsoka and fallen in platonic love with her over the course of Clone Wars and Rebels, what did you think of the live action presentation? I think I like Rosario Dawson in everything. I mean, the last thing I saw her in was Clerks 2, which was quite a jump to Ahsoka. So it was interesting to see how that went. I think she did a great job. Did you have any thoughts on that before or after seeing her on screen?
It was a hard adjustment in some ways, mostly because of the way I heard. This is a bit rumor here, but the way it was handled, in that Ashley Eckstein wasn't even given the opportunity to try or even told ahead of time. I think she found out via social media. I could be wrong about that. She's
why would Filoni do that to her? That seems like
sorry, I am dipping into the rumor side, and I need to be careful about that.
No, that's okay. We can take it with a grain of salt.
Big grain of salt there. And she's not, when you look at her, she's not right for the role, and the way that Ahsoka is coded as a woman of color, and Ashley's not that. She's tall, and Ashley's not that. I have stood next to her. We're both about 5 feet tall. So
yeah, she is an elf.
So she's not right for it. My struggle now. This was
coded as a woman of color there, but that color is orange. Is that
her facial features?
Oh, okay. I saw her as being a bit of a nod to anime, and that her name is a Japanese phrase, and she was an underage kid with gigantic eyes. I mean, she's not. She's obviously not supposed to be Asian, but she was definitely like a tip of the hat to the Asian culture.
Other than Airbender, I am not well versed in anime. We'll see. And a few episodes of Dragon Ball Z.
I was stationed in Japan for 4 years. It was the law. I was forced to watch it.
Right. So before I saw the Ahsoka series, I think it was that one, before I rewatched Rebels. Right. And so it was really hard for me to see Ahsoka with a different personality. So stoic and reserved.
Scarred by PTSD, as it were.
Yes. And so that was also, and just all the time. But it fits when you watch toward to the end of Rebels and the end of Clone Wars too. And you can see it. It's still hard because it's not the Ahsoka that I know, because there's such a time gap there that we just don't know what happened.
I was hoping,
but she did a great job. I have no problems with Rosario Dawson. I'm familiar with her from Netflix Marvel as Claire, and she did a fantastic job. No shade to her at all. In fact, I get to see her and Hayden at the next con I'm going to. So,
right,
fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of Asians, I wanted to touch on one other one other character I really love is Dr. Aphra. You mentioned the comic books. Have you been following her story or familiar with her?
I have not read those ones yet. I am actually in Marvel Land reading through Secret Wars, and before that I was reading what was I reading? Ultimates. So
I have to say,
I read Star Wars books and Marvel comics.
Every day, but Star Wars comics are Marvel comics. Every day you don't read the Dr. Aphra comics, Amanda, you are missing out on a real treat.
Pretty sure I have the audio drama on my phone.
Also very good. Right. Also very good. If Indiana Jones and Lara Croft had a child with Han Solo somehow, and then that child grew up to be a mercenary who worked for Darth Vader, like she is so classically an anti-hero. And always has a Batman gambit. It just says so much. I have three shelves of Palpatine on my wall. Nothing but Palpatine. The only non-Palpatine characters I collect are Dr. Aphra and her 2 droids. So anyway, see to it though. See to it. And that does lead to a philosophical question. And gentlemen, I think I've asked you this, Amanda, as well. What do you call an Asian person in Star Wars? Because there's no Asia. Dr. Aphra is clearly, as you say, coded as a woman of color. She's clearly drawn as an Asian character, and I always think that's interesting. Like when we see Rose Tico, and like, well, they're not technically Asian because there's no Asia in the Star Wars galaxy. They're nothing. All right,
sorry.
We'll come back.
It's
to that.
in and out for me a little bit. That's silly internet problem I'm having. Much better with the hotspot, but
all right.
No, it's all on my end. But so if I don't answer, it's because I can't hear everything.
Okay, I'll take it, Garrett. Appreciate that. Let's go from there.
I looked up.
That's where Rose is from.
Kazuto Ziono from Resistance. His dad is from Hosnian Prime.
All right. Sold.
So,
all right. Well, we are coming up on our time here, but before we go, I think we do have to give a quick, as we're kind of going through throughout. I think it behooves us to talk a little bit about Rey, just because she's been kind of the newest, with the sequel trilogy, kind of be that new princess for And whether you think the character is Mary Sue, wherever you want to do it, I think one thing that she has been good for is bringing especially young girls into the fandom, because you see so many little girls dressed up as Rey, wanting to be Rey, and say what you will about the character. Daisy Ridley really embodied that character very well, and it's really cool to see all these little girls that are coming into the fandom. It's because of Rey. Just like how we got in some of us got in the fandom because of whether it be Darth Vader or first time we saw Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, whoever it may be. That now we have little girls who are looking up to characters like Rey and characters like Jen Erso or whoever it may be, Ahsoka. That are coming in and what are kind of your feelings on Rey as a character?
Okay, if you ask me, I miss my name. This is fun. I love Rey. I just do. I don't care about the Mary Sue stuff or whatever. You can find some reason to explain it. I'm sure it's fiction. It's fantasy. Maybe a little bit more development or whatever would have been helpful. I'm sure. It's always helpful, but at the same time, like you're saying, going to Galaxy's Edge and seeing all those little girls makes me want a little girl that I can dress up as a little Rey.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Mine looks great.
Yeah, I bet she does. And I wanted kids didn't have them, and now I teach them, but I can't dress them up. So, it really touches my heart that the fandom is open to little girls in a way that it never has been before. And they don't have to hide the way my friends did growing up, their interests. They don't have to feel bad about playing with boys and boy toys. That all of this is very, very accessible for anybody, not just women, but anybody who wants to participate in it. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. And Rey is a big part of that. And whatever your critiques and criticisms are, that doesn't change what she's done for the next generation.
Yeah.
I would like to say that a lot of the time, a lot of people who say that Rey is a Mary Sue often cite how good she is at things that she's never trained to do. These are the same people who are okay with an 8-year-old Anakin Skywalker literally saving the world from an invasion fleet the first time he touches a starfighter. Oh, but it's fine. It's fine because he's going to be Darth Vader.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. And furthermore, I love getting into this one too with people. Like a lot of people legitimately, sincerely thought that she was overpowered because she did not drown 47 minutes into The Last Jedi when she fell into the water. She grew up on a desert planet. Where'd she learn to swim? All right. Well, Luke grew up on a desert planet. Where did he learn to ride a bipedal snow lizard and force it to ride itself into exhaustion and death? I have a horse. I've known that horse for 25 years. I still can't make him go up for a ride when it's time for dinner. He'd throw me off and go back to the barn. But Luke's been on Hoth for 6-7 minutes, and he's on this thing and rides it to death. It's ridiculous. It's what we look for. And I think anybody who thinks she's a Mary Sue is just upset that I'm not even going to say that there's a female character. I think that's a lot of it, but just upset there's a character they can't relate to. People complain about her beating up 2 thugs with a stick. Look at what Rey looks like. Look at where she lives. She's been there since she was 5. If she couldn't fight that good, she'd already be dead or worse. The fact that she's still free and alive means she's been fighting her whole life and good at it. Maybe we're doing too much work for the movie for some people, but I think some folks who think that she's a Mary Sue wouldn't be satisfied until we had a 9-hour-long movie where we see her learning how to tie her shoes and braid her hair. Because, where'd she learn how to do that? It's just ridiculous. And I haven't heard as much of it now, but being admin of several different Facebook groups and a fairly large Facebook page, I've seen a lot of that argument, and it just sticking to me. Like, you're just looking for things to hate. All right, I'm done. You can put a quarter in me if you want any more. Sorry.
Well, I think we should, before we kind of sign off here, maybe go around and each of us kind of tell who our favorite woman in the Star Wars canon is. And I think some of us will probably have the same ones, but I'm going to go and start off by saying, of course, it's Ahsoka for me. I mean, who else could it be? Yeah, just.
Oh, there's a whole plethora of female characters out there.
Well, I know, but
whole galaxy.
Yeah. But I think with Ahsoka, it's because we get the most time with her. You know, we have 7 seasons of Clone Wars, 5 seasons of Rebels, a TV show. So we see the most growth with her, and we see her from the very beginning all the way through to the end, and so that's why Ahsoka is my favorite. Garrett, what about you? Who's your favorite?
Gosh, I mean, Mara Jade is up there because I've got a thing for redheads. And I love Leia. I mean, she was probably my first childhood crush ever. But I'm going to have to say I'm going to go with Guri from Shadows of the Empire. She was just a fun... I take that back. There's one other character that I think tops Guri, and that is Juno Eclipse from The Force Unleashed. She shows up in both titles, Force Unleashed Part 1 and 2. She is Starkiller's love interest. She starts off as the pilot for his ship, and she is a really, really interesting character, very complex. You don't get a whole lot of scenes with her, but in what you do, you get to see some really cool facets of a character who is a captain in the Imperial Navy. She has earned this rank. She's a top pilot, handpicked by Vader to fly for Starkiller, which says a lot, especially when it comes to piloting skills. And but she comes to a point where she, like Starkiller, gets betrayed by the Empire, by Vader and Palpatine, and they see value in putting together the Rebel Alliance and going in that direction. And she's kind of the one that prompts him to do the right thing. So there you go, Juno Eclipse.
Well, what about you, Brian?
I've been rereading the comics lately and warming up for this episode. And last week I would have said Ahsoka, but 14 graphic novels later, I'm back on Dr. Aphra, just because and I didn't get to go into her too much, but she has a pivotal scene where we meet her working for Darth Vader. And a number of times in that employment, Aphra begs Vader, look, I know you're going to kill me. Everybody who works for you ends up dying. Just please don't put me out in space. Like just whatever you do, just don't space me. And she talks about how horrifying she finds the concept of suffocating and freezing at the same time. And some friend of hers who died that way, and it was so horrible. And she just tearfully begs him not to do that. So naturally, when Vader concludes their relationship, what does he do? He spaces her. And she has all along had a contingency plan for how to get saved when this takes place. And she's one of the only characters who tricks Darth Vader and completely gets away with it. At one point later in her series, she plays Vader against Palpatine. She goes to Palpatine and narks on him about stuff Vader's been doing, which earns Palpatine's respect because she's so underhanded and this is such a dangerous gambit. Also, of course, Palpatine knew Vader was doing it all along and is proud of Vader's attempt or whatever. But she's just, as I say, she's kind of a Batman Gambit character. She's always got something up her sleeve, but she's just very interesting in that she's a woman of color. She married Han Solo, or she dated Han Solo's first wife, which when people complain about Star Wars getting too woke, I like to present them Dr. Aphra. Look, an interracial lesbian relationship, and it's part of canon. How do you feel now? So that's a good time. But she's a great character, and she is also absolutely ruthless. She is like John Constantine level, sacrifice her friends to get her way, and always convincing herself it's for the greater good, but never quite believing it. She's a fascinating character. I love her to death.
What about you, Amanda?
Okay, well, Ahsoka does have to be at the top of the list, but got to put in a plug for my High Republic. And in Phase 2, there is a character named Salandra Show, and she is a Jedi. And what makes her different than any of the others is she carries a shield and a lightsaber. But the shield is her first defense and sometimes offense, but really defense. And the reason is that she puts life above everything, as the Jedi do. And I'm not saying they're not unwarranted in how they use their lightsabers and defense of themselves and others primarily, but her motto is always a shield, and her goal is to be a shield for others at all times, even at the expense of her own safety. And I just think that's unique and such a beautiful sentiment that she has a deadly weapon, but her first choice is a shield for others. So, Salandra Show.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm not as familiar with the High Republic.
It's where I've been for several years now, primarily. So, ups and downs, but a lot of ups for me. I've enjoyed it. So
I envy that. I have had a hard time breaking into that because I'm so wedded to the characters that we know. I find it difficult. It's not that it's bad writing. I just find it difficult to like, well, where is anybody that I care about in this story? And they're there. I know they're there. I got to give it a shot.
Yeah. They do have too many characters, and I think that they should have gone chronologically, like Phase 2 goes back in time, as Star Wars movies do, but because they have so many characters, they should have just carried the story chronologically. But overall, I've really, really enjoyed it. Some really good storytelling there. And a real threat to the Jedi. It's scary stuff. So
that's the Nihil, right?
Actually, the Nihil use a creature of nightmare called the Nameless or the Levelers, and they eat the Force.
Very Lovecraft. I'll take it. Okay, see there we go. I need
it is very
Lovecraftian. I can
Lovecraftian.
relate to. Yeah.
It takes a minute to get there, but once it does, whoo, buddy, they are. And then they experiment on them and make them more monstrous. So.
All right, sold American. I'm there. I'll pick up a novel and dip in.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for this week. Amanda, why don't you tell us where the people can find you at and what you're doing and all that fun stuff over at Clashing Sabers.
All right. I am in charge of Patreon content. I've tried to figure out a name: the Patreon Princess, the Patreon Pontificator. I haven't decided on anything yet. But
Patronus?
Which one? Sorry?
Patronus?
There we go. That might be the best one yet. So what I do, we are a nonprofit that all proceeds that come through Patreon plus an annual fundraiser go to buying books for teachers that are shipped and given to them completely free. And it is actually how I got into this mess to begin with of podcasting, this beautiful mess, because I'm a teacher myself, and I teach deaf education at the elementary level and received some books through connecting up with Clashing Sabers on Star Wars Book Nerds Facebook group. And ever since then, I've noticed they didn't have a lot of Patreon content, so I campaigned and they put me in charge of it, and just, trying to fight the good fight to get more books in the hands of teachers, more Star Wars books. I have seen in my own class how much my kids have enjoyed them, and really do.
Red Harvest, great for kids.
Maybe more of the phonics readers.
I guess Red Harvest has some great references. It has a direct quote from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 in it. A big fan.
Well, there you go. And we do books at all levels too. So if you know a teacher, if you are a teacher, you can go to our website, clashingsabers.net. You nominate a teacher, including yourself. Nomination is more of a mere formality to, I think, for tax purposes, potentially on our end of doing the taxes. But anybody who nominates gets books, and it's just a wonderful thing, I think, that we do.
Cool. That's really cool. That's really cool.
I'm on the
and
page
I guess you
right
can find
now.
us on all the socials. we're on all the socials, and I'm also trying to, it's a baby account that's already neglected, and I just barely started it, called Signing Star Wars, trying to make Star Wars more accessible to deaf people on social media. So.
Cool. Well, Garrett, what about you? Where can people find you at?
Well, you guys can find me on you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of a Sync Ran. It's currently a 5-book series, fantasy, ongoing, generational, with one or two very veiled nods to my love of Star Wars, among other franchises. I also talk about, I also promote my show The Right Way on YouTube, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and provide creative writing tips. And season 7 starts in less than 4 weeks on October 12th.
All right. What about you?
Sorry
Brian?
for interrupting you.
I remain in my lair at the Facebook page Sith Library and Archives, and my Instagram is Korosis. We are a lovingly cultivated collection of Sith-related art, culture, humor, even some philosophical writing. So come out there and join us. Myself, I pose as Darth Korosis with a few other folks there, and we can always use your support and your eyes. Come see what we got to offer.
Of course, as for us right here at War of the Stars, you can get a hold of us through our email, warthestars1@gmail.com. Our Instagram is at war_of_the_stars1. That's a lot of underscores. That is our Instagram. Our handle on X is also War of the Stars 1. YouTube, we are still at SW Child. And of course, if you want to get a hold of it, if you want to check us out, we are on Geek News Now, geeknewsnow.com on Spotify and YouTube. We got some major news coming soon about that, though. Probably next week we will make that announcement. So we'll just let you know what's going on with that next week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just go to Geek News Now. Like I said, specify on YouTube, it's Geek News Now Official is how you can find us on YouTube, and Spotify, just search Geek News Now. You can find not only our show but other shows throughout geekdom on there. We got a lot of really, really great shows. We've all I know me and Garrett have been on a couple of the shows, other shows on GNN, and it's always been a lot of fun. So if you want to support the show, ko-fi.com/War of the Stars. You can support us there, or you can get this cool merchandise right here just by going to spreadshirt.com/shop/war-of-the-stars-Rendar. Never mind.
Nice.
Yeah. You can get all kinds of cool merch there. We got this shirt. We also have a couple of other designs there too.
I think we need an official Ladies of Star Wars shirt for the ladies.
We do. I'll have to get that, figure something out.
Especially after this episode.
Yeah. But I think that about does it. Did I miss anything?
What are we tackling next week?
Next week we are on our journey through all the movies. Amanda, one of the things we've been doing here is the 4th week of every month, we are going through all of the theatrical movies. And next week we are on one of my favorites, Revenge of the Sith.
That's my favorite Saga movie.
Ooh, it's a good one. That's
second favorite for me.
I love to cry.
So yeah, that we'll be talking about next week. But as always, as we always say here, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Back, baby. No squeezy.
I